This video was partly made possible thanks to my lovely patrons. Me taking less than a month to release a new video? Who would have thought? The almost 13-year-old Nintendo 3DS. What's there to say about this neat little system that hasn't already been said? 3D land, PDI check, AR games. Ooh, photos! If you've seen my previous videos, you know cameras have had a pretty big role to play throughout Nintendo's many systems ever since the Game Boy. We've previously taken a look at the Game Boy Camera, Photo Dojo, and even the 3DS AR games. I once said that the Game Boy Camera is the grandfather of all Nintendo cameras. But if you see it as a weird 1998 outlier accessory that they let Game Freak make before they realized they will only be let out from their Pokemon dungeon every few years to make an original game, then you could say Nintendo's camera obsession truly started with the Nintendo DSi. Why yes, this is a Japanese copy of Face Training, Facial Exercises to Strengthen and Relax from Fumiko Inudo for the Nintendo DS, and no, this does not count. Some of you probably think of the DSi as an upgraded DS that just happens to have a camera included. But the camera is actually a pretty important part of the DSi since its very conception. According to an Iwata Asks interview, some folks at Nintendo considered the DS's touchscreen as its sense of touch, and the microphone as its ears. So it was inevitable that someone would suggest they give it eyes. You know, at this rate their next system would have had... Oh my god. Nintendo eventually settled on adding 2 cameras to the DSi, one on the front and one on the back. A swiveling camera like on the Game Boy Camera was out of the question since it would have made the system too bulky and increased costs. They were also apparently concerned with the durability of a swivel mechanism. I mean, they did make the Game Boy Camera, but that thing was also quite a chonker, so I don't blame them. Add to that the addition of an SD card slot, which Shigeru Miyamoto apparently, quote, forcefully pushed for, and the stage was set for Nintendo's first system with a built-in camera and music playback. Of course, they also needed some built-in software right out of the gate to make use of both, and having the software development team around to hear about the system's features as it was being designed definitely helped. To quote Satoru Iwata, "We didn't have advanced sharing to that extent during development of the Nintendo DS and Game Boy Advance, and it was more like the hardware team would show the plans to the software developers and say, this is what we did, and then software development in line with those plans began." This may be the first time in Nintendo's history that we've heard the software team's thoughts during the earliest stages of developing a game console and reflected them in the specifications. And so, the Nintendo DSi first launched on November 1st, 2008, with Nintendo DSi Camera and Nintendo DSi Sound built in, and the DSi store and browser, but that's off topic. Let's start with the camera first. From the beginning, Nintendo didn't intend for the DSi Camera to compete with portable cameras from that time. The DSi only has a 0.3 megapixel camera. In contrast, the first iPhone from 1 year earlier had a 2 megapixel camera, and most smartphone cameras nowadays can boast from 12 all the way to 108 megapixels. Nintendo probably wanted people to use the DSi as an everyday camera despite its limitations, so what they did was essentially turn it into a toy through software, the thing they do best. The main menu is pretty simple. Your options are basically just the camera and the photo album. But the first thing you see every time you turn on the camera is not the view of the outer camera. No, you see your stupid face and are prompted to pick from 11 different lenses. The first thing the camera tutorial nudges you to do is to just have fun messing with your own face. It's like retribution for playing with Marios. There's regular #NoFilter, the classic distortion lens where you can stretch the image around with the stylus. The graffiti lens lets you draw on the screen directly and add stamps. The color and color pad lens are kind of fun. One is a black and white filter that lets you make one color visible, and the other lets you pick a color in the shot to change. They don't always have the greatest accuracy, but they're still impressive for the DSi. There's of course a mirror lens with a whole bunch of mirror and kaleidoscope effects that you can mess around with the touchscreen. The mischief lens is basically Instagram filters before they happen, but dang is it absolutely too ahead of its time. It barely works or updates on time. Compared to the emoter lens, which just stretches your face into different expressions, but arguably works a lot better. It wouldn't surprise me if they reused this tech in face raiders for the 3DS. The merge and resemblance lens deliver more face-related shenanigans. Merge makes you take photos of 2 different faces so you can freely morph between them. I don't have someone else to take a photo of, so Shigeru Miyamoto will have to do. The resemblance is uncanny. Speaking of resemblance, the resemblance lens requires you to capture 2 faces at the same time, so it can compare how much they resemble each other and give a percentage rating. For example, guessing if 2 people are relatives. I mean, I don't know how accurate whatever algorithm they use is, but at the very least it knows when it's looking at two literally identical faces. Unless you flip one of them and then they're all just cousins now. Lastly, the frame lens lets you, as you'd expect, choose from preset frames. But there is another feature here that lets you take or pick an existing photo to use as a frame, erasing parts of the photo if needed. This basically allows for a very crude form of photo compositing, which I'm sure some kids definitely messed around with. Overall, these filters aren't likely to hold people's attention for more than 30 minutes nowadays, but I imagine it was still a pretty fun time waster back in 2008, especially for kids. I didn't own a DSi at launch myself, but jumping ahead to the 3DS, even I used the camera to mess around with friends and family in its early years. And spoilers, the DSi actually kinda edges out the 3DS a bit in terms of camera filters in my opinion. Though otherwise, there isn't much else to the camera itself. The album, naturally, lets you look through your photos either individually or as a slideshow. The photo resolution taken by the camera is actually higher than the DSi screen itself at 640 by 480, so they actually don't look half bad on the screen, even when zooming in. Going off on a tangent here, Nintendo Photo slideshow music is super underrated. No matter if it's on the Wii, DSi, or 3DS, some of it very much still slaps. Okay, we'll get back to the 3DS when we get there. You can apply lens filters to existing photos, and a later software update allowed you to share photos directly to Facebook. Man, this kinda dates the whole thing, doesn't it? You can also tag your photos with symbols, which displays them in the DSi menu. A neat use of the top screen before Nintendo realized they can actually put cute animations there. I guess there's also a calendar in the camera app that lets you take PictoChat style notes, which is neat. To be honest, the other half of the DSi camera's functionality mostly came from its use in other DSiware, like Photo Dojo or importing photos in the Flipnote Studio. But in the end, it did still succeed in feeling like an integral upgrade to the DS. You can't really think of the DSi without thinking about the camera. But what about Nintendo DSi Sound? The microphone has always been a part of the DS since its inception, so I suppose it was a matter of time until they finally had a built-in app that let you make your own voice recordings. And you also know what that means, that's right, it's parakeet time! So in this beginning screen, we have two options. We have... What I meant to say was you have the option to play with... Okay, that's enough of you. First of all, there's the regular voice recording option, which sounds exactly like what it is. You hit the record button, say something completely stupid within the maximum of 10 seconds, say something completely stupid within the maximum of 10 seconds, then pick one of the colors in the OK button to save it as a speech bubble of that color. I always thought this was kind of a neat little Nintendo way of doing that. Of course, afterwards, there are multiple ways to mess with your own recordings, including reversing your voice. You can change the pitch and speed of a recording just by sliding around on the touchscreen, or you can apply one of the many provided filters.
The helium filter,
The electric fan filter, the tunnel filter,
the transceiver filter,
the low harmony filter,
the high harmony filter, and the synth harmony filter. And then you have the...
Looks like the parakeet from earlier is here as well, so what would you like to add? The parakeet is the first Nintendo character that can canonically swear, let it be known. That's basically it for just voice recording, but of course I also have to talk about the pretty well-known Easter egg. Just highlight a speech bubble on the menu and wait for about a minute and it'll get remixed into the Mario theme. I'm sure a lot of people have tried doing this with stupid noises. What? Next, we have the option to play with our music. Though on the DSi, there are a few interesting caveats. For some reason, the DSi is only compatible with AAC audio files with the M4A, MP4, or 3GP file extensions, despite MP3 obviously already being a thing. I imagine this has something to do with licensing, since going off on a tangent here, the Wii Photo channel used to be able to support MP3 playback before the 1.1 software update actually replaced it with AAC support instead. And now you too have this useless nugget of knowledge stuck in your brain. Once you have your DSi loaded with songs, you can just play them like any other music player. And compared to the Play-N Micro we looked at previously, the audio quality is obviously much better this time around, even on speakers. If you plug in earphones, you can also listen to your music when the system is closed. I did this a lot with my 3DS back in the day, so spoilers, a lot of this functionality we'll be seeing on the 3DS as well later on. Anyway, there are a lot of options to pick from on the bottom screen. You've got the same speed and pitch slider from the voice recorder. You can now pick any voice recording to play along with the music. And the voice filters are replaced with 4 different ones. There's a radio filter, an echo filter, a filter that supposedly turns songs into instrumentals. Whether that works is, well, sometimes it does its best, other times it just removes stuff like percussion or makes it sound like the DSi got submerged in water. And last but not least, an 8-bit game filter. Finally, I can easily make music for my nostalgic retro-inspired indie game. Okay, so far these are all options you can probably find in some other music players. But do they have the greatest feature of all time, L&R percussion? Just tap the shoulder buttons and now you too can jam along to the song you're listening to. And there's like 12 sets of instruments to choose from, how can you not love doing this? It even works when the system is closed. And after all this, I haven't even mentioned the visualizers that you can switch between using this pull cord. I mean, most of these are garden variety visualizers, but there are some cool ones in there too. This Excitebike themed one is a classic. Wait, what was that? This 3D spaceship one you can actually interact with using the shoulder buttons. And so is this Mario themed visualizer, which goes perfectly with the Mario percussion instruments. This is the synergy I crave. But yeah, all in all, this is a pretty substantial leap from the Play-N. Aside from the lack of MP3 support, this thing has an intuitive interface that fits the DS, and comes with all these literal bells and whistles so you can, play with your music. It says it right there. These are some very solid camera and music apps for the DSi. So when the 3DS rolled around 3 years later, you know what they say, if it ain't broke. Well, actually, they did change some things here and there, most notably the camera. It's a bit complicated. Well, let's just start from the Nintendo 3DS camera. The first notable change to the 3DS camera is that the outer camera underwent mitosis. Yes, while the inner camera is still there are now 2 outer cameras for the infamous 3D effect. I mean, come on, if you have glasses-free 3D as your big selling point, it would be absurd not to have stereo cameras to go with it. Especially in the early 2010s when the 3D fad was still ongoing, Nintendo figured there'd be a potential market for a portable 3D camera with a built-in 3D display for sharing photos of others. And maybe you can also play Pilotwings on it. This was also not an easy task according to Iwata either, since in addition to just slapping on another camera, both of them have to be precisely aligned while maintaining durability, which adds to the overall cost. The 3DS cameras actually have the exact same resolution as the DSi ones, but with the added screen resolution and wider aspect ratio, the photos you take are definitely blown up on the system screen and don't look the greatest unless you zoom out in the photo viewer or extract the photos off the SD card. But to its credit, the 3D effect does work, and it is still a fun novelty to this day. There still aren't a lot of mainstream smart devices nowadays that can take 3D photos, let alone let you view them in 3D on the device itself. Unless you were in China from 2012 to 2018 apparently, they made a lot of 3D phones according to Wikipedia. Now, being a 3D camera comes with its own unique quirks. If you pull this lever on the bottom screen, a few more options appear, one of which is the 3D focus. Instead of being a regular camera focus setting, this lets you change the focus of the 3D effect. By default, it's set to autofocus. But say, for example, you want to take a close-up shot of an object and it ends up popping out of the screen too much. You can adjust the 3D focus so that the object sits at a more comfortable depth. It's the kind of detailed setting I would not expect to find in a Nintendo product, and you can also change it after the photo has already been taken. Aside from this, you have some other options that weren't in the DSi camera, including a paltry digital zoom, a level if you press down on the D-pad, and timer options including voice activation, which is nice. The various lenses from the DSi camera, however, have been replaced by 6 camera modes, all of which are honestly not as fun because I imagine the distortion features would not have worked well with the 3D photos, and I think most people would consider these a downgrade from the DSi. The one decent addition being that you can use sharpness, contrast, and brightness sliders along with different color filters. So, for the camera modes, you can blow on the mic to create various sparkle effects, add a hazy dreamlike quality, aka turn up the bloom, add a pinhole camera filter, there's a low light filter that I guess just turns up the brightness, The merge filter from the DSi returns, but now this time you have to capture both faces simultaneously, and this time it actually merges the faces. I can't tell if this is better or worse. Apparently, the merge feature was such a big hit among Nintendo's developers that it actually frustrated the team that was making face raiders next door, who were trying to come up with different face-based tricks. This ended up inspiring them to add a feature where if a face comes into view of the cameras while you're playing, it'll get added to the game in real time. And of course, both teams did work together to implement features like having faces from saved photos be detected as well. There was generally quite a lot of collaboration between the teams working on 3DS Camera, AR games, and face raiders, with some features being conceived for one project but ultimately implemented into another, such as the Me photo taking from AR games originally being considered for the camera app instead. Anyway, we can't forget the last of the modes, the mystery mode. Like, you don't even get a preview of this one. So let's just see what we can get with it. Yep, it's random filters with some occasional weird stuff showing up. Par for the course for this company at this point. I think most people can agree that these camera filters definitely don't hold a candle to the ones on the DSi. But I can give it a pass because 3D photos were enough of a novelty at that time. And at least you can still draw on photos after the fact with the graffiti feature. It's very reminiscent of the graffiti feature on the Wii photo channel but with some new stamps. What's neat though is the new 3D pen, letting you raise and lower the depth of the flat image by drawing. It's not necessarily a practical edit you want to make to photos, but still a fun thing to mess around with. Like, I don't know, you can make your nose stick all the way out of the screen or something. Alright, 3D photos are cool and all, but guess what? October 21st, 2011. The first ever Nintendo Direct, the one that started it all. Reggie comes on screen, he makes history with another iconic line.
What's wrong with you?
And finally drops some bombshell news about what we've always wanted. 3D video.
Featuring DreamWorks Animation's Shrek characters.
You know what, maybe it wasn't 3D Land that saved the 3DS. But yes, we also got the announcement that the 3DS Camera app was going to be updated in November 2011, finally adding the long-awaited 3D video recording feature. Look, to 12-year-old me, this was hype. I like how the camera feed just becomes clearer and smoother once you switch from photos to videos. It's probably due to resolution differences between the two, but still kinda funny. And yep, it's 3D video recording on the 3DS, just as advertised, with a maximum recording length of 10 minutes. Blowing the footage up on a YouTube screen in 2D definitely isn't doing it any favors though. Especially not with this mic quality. I do think it makes up for that with the special video modes though. The different photo filters aren't here, but the free special shooting modes are definitely really neat. Montage just lets you pause the recording and continue on a different time, but it's perfect for if you want to do the classic film splicing trick like it's the good old 1900s. Then we have interval, which lets you film time lapses with intervals from 60 seconds between shots all the way down to half a second. And finally stop motion, which as it says lets you shoot in stop motion, complete with onion skin. These may not sound all that exciting, but for a younger me, it was super cool to just have an accessible way to easily shoot things like stop motion. Something you still have to go out of your way to find external apps for on smartphones. I used to just film random objects in my house moving about, took a time lapse and went frame by frame with L and R, and even occasionally dabbled in animation by just shooting drawings on paper in stop motion. So I'm sure someone out there has the 3DS Camera to thank for possibly kickstarting an interest in these kinds of things. Oh, and don't worry, I didn't forget about that freaking bird that I love. It sticks around in the camera app too this time, offering up useful hints and tips about pretty much every function of the app that you can revisit at any time. I can't be the only one who tried to hunt all of them down like achievements, like of course I'm gonna write protect my SD card just to hear this bird say new stuff. Nintendo's camera offerings up to this point have always been pretty solid, but I think the 3DS app finds a great balance between quirky charm and actually useful functionality. I took a lot of photos and videos back in the day as I traveled everywhere with my 3DS, and looking back at them is as nostalgic as flipping through an old album, especially with the 3D effect. Look at this, I even put in photos of 3D artwork I found online, and screenshots of games like Mario 64 rendered in 3D just to see what it would hypothetically look like on the 3DS. If only younger me could see me now. Turns out, this is exactly what Nintendo hoped to achieve, with the devs making parallels to the Game Boy camera as a fun camera that can serve as a source of memories. The director of Nintendo 3DS Camera and Sound, Yusuke Akifusa, wanted the camera to be something that people would use for 5 to 10 years. And if you're someone like me who owned a 3DS at a young age, chances are you also have an album of memories sitting on your 3DS waiting for you to revisit or cringe at. In that sense, I'd say he did his job well. Man, I wonder what he's doing at Nintendo now. Oh! I suppose now's a good time to talk about Nintendo 3DS Sound, which compared to the camera isn't as much a complete overhaul as it is an expansion of its DSi counterpart. A lot of the UI is very similar between both systems, and most of the functionality on the DSi is still there. You can still record voice clips and mess around with them using the same filters as DSi Sound, but this time you finally get more than one page of recordings and a slightly fancier UI, which is nice. Wait, why do I have a clip in here from 2021? The music player is where most of the upgrades in 3DS Sound reside. Most notably, it can play MP3 files this time. Nintendo finally caught up a decade later. Most of the music player is about the same as what we saw on the DSi, but most of the visualizers have been given a 3D overhaul on the top screen. We've got some returning ones like the Excite Bike visualizer, the spaceship tunnel that now lets you shoot using the shoulder buttons, and we have new ones like this clock that shows you exactly how many minutes you'll waste listening to the Rhythm Heaven Gigamix, a cool nod to the original GBA Play-An, and a Game & Watch inspired soccer game. There's two types of people, those who know you can control this game using the circle pad and those who are punching themselves right now. Also, if you press the coin percussion button 100 times, you get a 1-up sound. I don't know, just thought I'd put that somewhere. The filters are still the same as they are on DSi, with the renamed karaoke filter still as functioning as ever. I suppose there is one new feature they added for the 3DS. That's right, they added Straight Pass. This is just weird. You'd be forgiven for thinking that this somehow lets you magically share songs with anyone you Street Pass, but no. Instead, you have a Street Pass playlist that you can play songs in, and when you Street Pass someone, the metadata about the songs you put in gets shared with other people instead, like the song name, artist name, or the year it's from. Also, this is how you get the elusive blue parakeet. For those of you who've heard about them from the regular parakeets tips but never figured out how to find them, I hope I give you some much needed closure in your life. After street passing someone, the app is then supposed to show your compatibility with other people by comparing if you've saved the same songs or genres as them, or ranking the most popular songs or artists among all the people you street passed. I imagine in a perfect society where everyone is ripping popular albums and putting them on their 3DS, this feature would work as intended. In reality, on my main system, I've only ever gotten like 5 Street Pass hits in 3DS Sound, not counting duplicates from the same person or my other systems. So I have no clue if this thing was even effective or useful in the US, so maybe you guys can let me know in the comments. Actually, I lied, there is one more neat little secret in here. If you make a new playlist and name it Secret, the parakeet will be like, hey kid, let me show you what a real secret playlist looks like, and unlock an actual secret playlist where every song that you put in it will have their name censored. But you know, it's not like I have songs that I need to hide from other people or anything.
What are you listening to?
Nothing. Nintendo 3DS Sound definitely doesn't offer as big of an upgrade compared to its DSi counterpart, but I still have a lot of fond memories of it. In the early era of smartphones, my 3DS is actually what I used to listen to music with while out and about, since it was the most convenient option I had available. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one out there who did this. 3DS Sound is probably the last time people got nostalgic over a music player since Winamp, so for those who missed out on the experience, I hope this was a decent look at it. I mean, how else will I let people know that 14-year-old me used to listen to classic hits like and the same could be said for the camera as well. While the DSi and 3DS cameras may not be as wacky as the Game Boy camera in terms of presentation and extra features, they all still had strong identities and a memorable atmosphere, from the chill background music to the parakeet tips. It's that trademark Nintendo charm people love so much that it's less apparent on something like the built-in software on the Switch. With modern smartphone cameras being much more prevalent and powerful, and with arguably better editing features for social media and all that, I still can't help but miss the appeal of the original Nintendo-developed camera apps. Heck, I personally barely use my smartphone camera to take photos of things outside nowadays. The 3DS was basically my peak camera usage period, mostly due to the 3D camera gimmick that hasn't been replicated in mainstream devices since. Maybe Apple will pull it off with their $3,500 headset, but you know, somehow I doubt it. And that's the DSi and 3DS camera and sound apps. Wow, what a mouthful. I'm sure there are lots of people out there with plenty of memory stored on their handhelds, and if you're one of them, then I hope you just enjoy me pining for simpler times and maybe reminding you to dig your handhelds back out, reminisce over your photos and sounds, and back them up. Actually do that last one, it's a good thing to do. As for whether or not Nintendo will once again make a system with a built-in camera, well, this'll have to do.